Right, I'd like to welcome you all. On behalf of Freedom and Fairness for Northern Cyprus campaign and the Circle Foundation, we're jointly hosting this event. We welcome all the delegates. And to my left, Your Excellency, Koray Ertaş, UK Turkish Ambassador to the United Kingdom. Sir George, who would be sitting down on my left, but I believe he is running late and hopefully he will join us in a bit. We were also going to be joined by Afzal Khan, but I believe commitments elsewhere, we may get 10-20 minutes at the end, but let's see. David Maddox, who is the political editor of the Express Online, welcome. And at the end as well, we have Enes Güzel, who is also the chair of the Circle Foundation. He's our co-host as well. I welcome all of you here today. Now, just as a reminder, the subject today is Shaping Tomorrow, the Future of Cyprus. I just want to add also, we were at the Conservative Party conference last week. This is an apolitical initiative, so therefore we're not with no particular allegiance to any political party. I'll give you a brief background on the FFNC, the Freedom and Fairness for Northern Cyprus, and then I'd like to just talk about what the main aspirations are for the Freedom and Fairness campaign, and then I'm going to ask each of the panellists here to make their own comments on their experiences regarding this particular subject matter. And then we're going to end with a questions and answers period. So you'll have your chance to say whatever you want to say to specific panellists or general. But definitely no statements, it has to be questions, please. My name is Çetin Ramadan. I mean, I was born in London. I'm a Turkish Cypriot heritage. I've served to the London Turkish Cypriot community for over 20 years, and I was 2 years chair of the Council of Turkish Cypriot Association, which is the largest democratically elected Turkish Cypriot umbrella group in the UK, and we are predominantly London-based. The Freedom and Fairness idea came into being because the Turkish Cypriot version of events is never heard as it should be. We've also suffered personal losses of land, liberty and life. We continue to suffer since 1963, when the Greek Cypriot leadership usurped our legal rights to the 1960 constitutional order. The continued isolation of the Turkish Cypriot people on an international scale has reached a crucial breaking point now. Our unheard and silenced voices, the inequality, Islamophobia treatment, and the extreme hatred of Turkish Cypriots by our compatriots has pushed us too far. And today, the only country that stands behind us unconditionally is Turkey. Just like in 1974. So she continues to exercise her legal rights, and if it wasn't for Turkey's international intervention and using her internet intervention rights and safeguarding all of the inhabitants of the island from further bloodshed, we wouldn't be talking here today about this subject. Currently, Cyprus enjoys peace and stability, and that is thanks to Turkey's legal actions. This campaign seeks to encourage trade and strengthen the UK's relationship with Northern Cyprus and its people. It aims to raise awareness of the country, champion Britain's 300,000 strong Turkish Cypriot community, and build on the existing bond between the UK and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. We hope to galvanise support and foster positive perceptions of the country in the interest of all communities and on the island of Cyprus across the UK. We also advocate for the commencement of direct flights between the UK and the TRNC. At this point, I'm going to pass over to His Excellency, who has a wealth of experience on the Cyprus matter, and hopefully he can give us his viewpoint on the way forward in Cyprus, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate such opportunities, especially in the UK, as Britain is also a special country when it comes to the Cyprus issue because of historical reasons and legalistic reasons as well. So the overwhelming narrative is in favor of one side of the current conflict. So it's always useful to also hear what the other side thinks. And I'm grateful for both NGOs for giving this opportunity to me. I will not go into details about the historical background of the conflict.
No.
The literature is over there. The Turks have some points, and the Greeks have opposing views and points. I would rather talk about the current facts, and which brings us to today's reality. The first fact is that there are two separate democracies on the island, and according to us, there are two separate states on the island. The second fact is for more than half a century, we tried to find a middle ground, as a resolution, mostly brokered by the United Nations, and all these initiatives have been based on bizonal, bicommunal federation model. So what we believe as the motherland, Turkey, is that the federation model has already been exhausted. For us, the last drop was actually 2004 UN plan, which was called by the name of late Kofi Annan, the Annan plan, where Turkey actually and the Turkish Cypriots have given tremendous concessions in terms of a unified island based on a federative model. But as many of you will remember, in 2004, this plan was overwhelmingly rejected by the Greek Cypriot side, whilst the then Greek Cypriot leadership strongly campaigned against the agreement, despite the fact that it was, as I say, supported by the UN, the EU, and all other major powers of the day. And it was overwhelmingly accepted by the Turkish Cypriots. But we gave another chance to the talks about 10 years later in Kram, Montana. There were another round of deep discussions which took like 2 weeks, again with the presence of UN, UK, the EU then. And everybody also witnessed then that the Greek Cypriots were not also ready to a similar solution based on bicommunal, bizonal federation. So the thing, if I look from a Greek Cypriot perspective, we believe that there is no incentive whatsoever that will encourage especially the young generations of Greek Cypriots to share the power with the Turkish Cypriots. Because currently the Greek Cypriots have already possess whatever they can possess in terms of the power, the recognition. When you say Republic of Cyprus, they represent the state. They already become a member of the EU, despite the fact that they rejected the plan. They were given that huge prize, which the then Foreign Secretary Jack Straw also said he repents actually for giving a green light to then EU membership of the southern part of the island. And the Turkish Cypriot side, as you say, are actually suffering under embargoes, unjust embargoes. So why shall, a simple Greek Cypriot on the street share power with the Turks? Why shall they give, let's say, the position of the deputy president to the Turks? Why they give a certain portion of their parliament to the Turkish Cypriots? The list is long. I don't know whether there are people here who knows about little bit about Annan plan, but it was a long, pages of detailed plan touching almost in every aspect of life. So in every aspect of life, there was a certain division between the two sides. So therefore, after actually consuming all these opportunities, the Turkish Cypriots decided to move forward with a two-state plan.
Yeah.
And with this policy, actually, President Tatar got the approval of the Turkish Cypriot voters in the last elections. So he won the elections with this ticket, actually.
So it's fair to say that that was the mandate he gained from the public. So
exactly.
Yeah, they voted him
exactly.
in on a 52%
exactly.
two-state solution.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where we are actually, as the government and people of Republic of Turkey. We also supported that new position. But I just want to underline that the new position does not mean an amicable relationship with the Greek Cypriots. We just want the reinstitution of sovereign equality, right, of the Turkish Cypriots, which is actually given by the 1960 treaties. So this is actually an inherent right of the Turkish Cypriots. Once the state is recognized, obviously the two sides have to cooperate in various fields. This is a must because it's an island, and there will be two states in the island. As a matter of fact, President Tatar have already made last year some concrete proposals to the Greek Cypriot side on, let's say, fighting irregular migration, on electricity issues, on hydrocarbon issues, on demining, for example, and these proposals are still on the table. Yeah. So this is actually a simple view of why we support the two-state solution, why we believe that this will be better for the island, and as you suggested, as we see these dramatic pictures in the Middle East now, the Turkish intervention has actually brought stability to the island, and thanks God, for about 6 decades now, the island is in peace. Yeah. So we hope to continue this peaceful standing with two states on the island. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. I mean, we will have questions, I'm sure, later on what you've just told us. But can I just, in terms of how many UN brokered talks there have been, I believe there have been 15.
15, yeah.
Yeah. And they have all been rejected by the Greek Cypriot side.
Yes.
And they've all been based on a federal unitary state, bizonal, bi-communal.
Honestly, in all these years, when people reach to these 15 points, let's say 15 different agreements, there is now a huge acquis. Yeah. And the acquis can be, revisited in the Annan Plan or in Karam-Montana as well. And there are certain conditions on various issues, on power sharing and others. And in Karam-Montana, for example, the Greek side even rejected the rotational presidency, which has been one of the fundamental principles of all these, as I say, negotiation acquis. Yeah. So yes, 15 different proposals.
And just to remind our audience, I'm sure they already know, but the 1960 Constitution was based on equality. Sure. And it was two peoples that had come together under a unitary state at the time with equal sovereignty. And in terms of the population, it was proportional in Parliament, but obviously there was a larger Greek Cypriot population than the Turkish Cypriot one, and therefore the Greek Cypriots had a larger majority in governance. However, unfortunately, this only lasted for 3 years. Okay, so after December '63, they were kicked out. This is where violence erupted, and there was the AOKA movement, of course, which is a terrorist organisation aimed at effectively eradicating Turks from the island, the Turkish Cypriot population from the island. I won't go into further historical facts, but there is one in particular that has effectively created all of the inequality as we know it now, and this is Resolution 186, which was passed by the United Nations in March 1964. And this effectively gave the Greek Cypriot side full control. They were the legal international personality of the island. And to this day, they still hold that position. At this point, can I pass over to David Maddox? If you can give us a little bit of perspective on your experience with this subject matter and how you managed to answer some of your own questions by visiting the island.
Indeed. So first of all, I just want to say thank God Cyprus isn't playing out like Israel-Palestine is, and I think we should all be grateful for that, for all the problems that Cyprus, North and South, have. That at least there's been as we say, has been said, decades of peace, if not a very happy situation. So I'm obviously British. I'm not from Cyprus, either side. I had no idea really about Cyprus until a few years ago, and I ran into a friend in Parliament. I work every day in Parliament, mostly covering UK politics, but also a lot of international politics, and I ran into a man who was going to become Chet's colleague rather randomly, and he said to me, "Oh, you wouldn't believe who I'm looking after today. I've got the Prime Minister of the Turkish Republic of North Cyprus with me," and I said, "Well, you better arrange an interview for me," kind of half jokingly. And 2 hours later, I was sitting in a hotel room in Mayfair talking to this chap, Ersin Tatar, who would then go on. In fact, he was just getting his campaign ready, but would go on to be president of the TRNC. I thought it was interesting. He talked about two-state solution. I did a fairly straight report on the interview. We ran it, I think, a full page lead, but full page on page 30 or something like that. It was on our kind of curiosities page in the Sunday Express. I was working for the Sunday Express at the time, and thought very little more of it until a couple of weeks later. In my inbox is an IPSO complaint. Now, I don't know if you're all aware what an IPSO complaint is, but that's effectively our watchdog. And that's the kind of highest level of complaint, and it's kind of they can enforce corrections and all sorts of things. And we went. The lawyer sent it to me just to ask me for comment, and I read through the complaint. And there was no complaint about accuracy. There was no complaint about content. The only substance of the complaint was that we'd had the temerity to interview a man who should not be interviewed. And just as a general warning for everybody, if you want to really annoy a journalist and get them interested in the topic, put in an IPSO complaint and tell them they can't publish something. And that, I'm afraid, is what happened with me. Because as soon as that happened, I think, well, there's obviously something in this. Because nobody wants to cancel somebody. In my experience, whether it's right, left, or whatever, nobody wants to cancel somebody unless they want the debate squashed. And if they want the debate squashed, then they usually don't have security in their own arguments. And that's true whatever political persuasion you have. It creates enormous suspicion on my part. So obviously I interviewed him again when he became president, and several other times since, actually. He may well be the one man by pure chance, actually, that I've interviewed more times than any other, but I think it's because every time he visits the country now. I went a couple of times this year, actually, to see North Cyprus, and one with a kind of group of journalists on a fact-finding tour, and one I took a holiday, actually, because I quite liked it. I didn't like the flights, I have to say. But
Is that because you had to change
that's
flights
because
and
I had to go to Istanbul,
you
yeah.
couldn't fly direct?
Yeah, I think I'd rather stayed in Istanbul for a bit. Anyway,
Yeah.
so, I then got over. Anyway, but it's. I mean, I think there were two things on that first visit in particular that shocked me. The first place we were taken to was a site of the mass graves of the people, of the Turkish Cypriots, not just people, Turkish Cypriots, who were slaughtered on the 14th of August 1974. Now, the British High Commissioner recently said that the second part of the Turkish intervention in 74 was illegitimate. I would wholly dispute that. I think he may well be right in his assessment that Turkey wanted to have a big enough amount of land to, allow it to function effectively as a state. He may well be right about that, but you can't prove that he's right about that. What we can prove empirically is that Greek Cypriots tried to slaughter Turkish Cypriots when there was supposed to be a ceasefire, and what, in my view, I have to say, and I'm not accusing all Greek Cypriots, but certainly a few Greek Cypriots at the time, that is clearly an attempt at ethnic cleansing, and it should stand with the other attempts at ethnic cleansing shocked us in our recent history, whether it's Bosnia or other places, and we should understand it in those terms. So, in my view, once I saw that, and I can tell you that a Labour member of the House of Lords also took the same view as me, was that Turkey's moral right to move south was certainly confirmed through that action, and that's and there's no doubt about that in my mind.
Because can I just interrupt a second? So, just for people that don't know, that this was the second phase of the peace operation. Yeah. So the first phase on the 20th of July, which preceded 5 days before by a Greek invasion. Let's be clear, there was a Greek invasion of the island. There was a junta that was running Greece at the time, not too happy with Makarios, and they wanted Enosis. And then Turkey's legal intervention after 5 days of to and fro between the other guarantor powers, mainly the UK, who was physically on the island in any case, did nothing about it. So we're hearing the stories about these slaughters, literally, weeks after Turkey's first peace operation. So they moved down.
So, and interesting enough, the High Commissioner has recently confirmed British foreign policy is that first intervention was justified. They dispute the second part. I'm not sure how they can dispute the second part, I'm afraid, given what happened. But, so terrible things happened to both sides. Let's be frank about this. Nobody's hands were clean in this. My last trip, my taxi driver who's taking me around introduced me to a Turkish Cypriot who had to defend his village in 1963, was handed 3 bullets, first 2 for the first Greek Cypriot he saw, and the last one for himself to not get captured. And he was 17 at the time. But at the same, a few hours later, he was pointing to the hills where the Turkish Air Force napalmed Greeks. And that's, so there's no clean hands of this. There are many missing people still.
Yeah.
There are, I saw, I'm a practicing Christian. I found it very sad seeing the empty churches. People, you see, I met people, Turkish Cypriots, whose village had been moved, literally physically moved because of what's happened. And I know Greek Cypriots have lost land, I know Turkish Cypriots have lost land. It is a tragic situation, but whether you look at 63, if you go to, if you're ever in Nicosia in the northern part, I would recommend you go to a thing called a Museum of a Bloodbath, which is was the home of, it's preserved a home of a Turkish Cypriot officer who was a doctor as well, and there was an attempt to slaughter doctors and officers who were Turkish Cypriots, and you know, they broke into their house, couldn't find him, but found his children lying in the bath and killed the lot of them. And the pictures of those are particularly disturbing, I would say. But you know, so 63 and 74, it is clear that there were attempts by people in senior positions in the Greek Cypriot population to, as I say, ethnically cleanse the island. Now, in my view, the Turkish Cypriots were the main victims, ethnically, and yet, if we look at what's unfurled after 1974, and I'll just finish on this one, what's unfurled after 1974 is that there is only one group of people who have been punished for what happened in 1974. It's not Turkey. Turkey is a member of NATO, a leading member of the international community, carries on, hugely influential. It's not Greece. It's not the Republic of Cyprus, which was given EU membership despite reneging on the Annan deal. And you know, it is the Turkish Cypriots, and it's the Turkish Republic of North Cyprus. And you know, not to be even allowed direct flights is, I mean, it's astonishing, really, and the continued embargoes against them. Yeah. My view is that there can never be an agreement or a deal done until there's a recognition, an international recognition. I include the British government in this, I think have been woeful in this, but also the EU and America, but an international recognition that the Turkish Cypriots were victims and have equal rights in this terrible affair. I'll leave it at that.
David, thank you. I mean, I'll pick up on a few points, and again, you know, our delegate guests, they can ask you questions directly. I think the High Commissioner specifically said that Turkey's second phase was a land grab opportunity.
He did, yes. Yeah.
But I mean,
he also said that it nullified the 1960 treaty, which I have to say, you, having dealt with a few of these things, you can't pick and choose on treaties. You know, and that 1960 treaty is what gives us our sovereign rights to those bases as well. So I think that's a very dangerous game to play.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Treaty of Establishment is all about the bases, and if that's the case, and the Constitution is nullified in a way, just for that reason alone. And I think a recent Foreign Office meeting with Alison Kemp, this point was raised with her, because the Turkish Cypriots have never actually disputed the integrity of the sovereign basis. It's part of the Constitution, but yet the Greek Cypriots, I'm afraid, always bring that into disrepute. So in terms of, and the other point I wanted to make about the second peace operation, which effectively gives us the border now, the green line, if you want to call it that, the buffer zone, also created a safe haven for both populations. There was an exchange population agreement at UN level in 1975, which allowed the movement of Greek Cypriots from the north to move to the south safely, and vice versa. And that was also one of the principal reasons for moving further south. But as we know, the territorial adjustments have always been offered in a comprehensive settlement. It's not as if the Turkish Cypriots want to hang on to 37% of the land. You know, if we were to have a two-state solution, for example, you know, you could easily have territorial adjustment, literally a straight line almost, dividing the north and the south, Turkish north, Greek south. On this point, can I also introduce Enes Güzel, or he can introduce himself, Circle Foundation, what you actually do, and your experiences with the Cyprus problem, because I know you've hosted a number of events at various academic institutions on this subject.
Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us in today's discussion. My name is Enes, I'm the president of the Circle Foundation. Circle Foundation is a think tank. It focuses on strengthening Turkey-UK relationship. We have established the organization in 2020, and since then we've been organizing a number of different subjects on matters that Turkey and UK relationship. And this is our actually second year in organizing events in the Labour Party, because we promote also Turkish communities' political engagement within the Labour Party. And the subject today is the future of Cyprus. And as my fellow panelists have talked about it, Cyprus issue is a frozen conflict, and it's been one of the longest conflicts that has been enduring since in the world right now. And so the current formula for bizonal bicommunal settlement has proved to be many times ineffective and inefficient. And I think we missed the bus in Annan Plan when it was presented a golden opportunity for both sides for a settlement that can bring the solution to the island when the EU membership has been offered to both sides as one island. But however, as we know that while the Turkish side has predominantly accepted the Annan Plan in 2004, the Greek side declined and refused for a settlement. Despite the fact that they refused, still the Greek side has been accepted to the EU, to the European Union as one, while the Turkish Cypriots has been continuing to do suffering as an unrecognized state. And since President Tatar has called for the international community to recognize and propose a two-state solution, and looking at this two-state solution, which is more practical and more applicable to today's circumstances and conditions, because for over 50 years we have two communities in Ireland where they have no connections, despite compared to their grandfathers, right? They used to live together, but however, right now we have a new two generations that doesn't share the same values, nothing is being in common. Therefore, while the Greek side is enjoying all the privileges as a recognized state and as an EU member state, we cannot accept the continuing suffering of the Turkish Cypriot community. Therefore, I think today the current formula for the two-state solution is the most reasonable, most applicable, and feasible formula that can lead us to the lasting peace and settlement in the island.
Yes, so thank you. Just a couple of points. You mentioned about the frozen conflict. I think David Lammy used those words earlier on, and our communication with him. Look, if Cyprus has been a stable mainstay since Turkey's intervention.
1974.
Yeah. Okay, and 50-year mark is coming up since 54, but most people know that the conflict started in 74, but it didn't. It started in 63, so we could argue it's 60 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you not agree that the two-state model is the only model we can use in terms of building up or re-establishing our relationship with our Greek Cypriot compatriots, and then possibly maybe generations later to form, however we want, a type of a unified effort to represent Cypriot heritage.
Absolutely. I mean, the current situation when we look at the island, take an even example of direct flights, right? I mean, Turkish Cypriots in the island, even though they are equal partners to their Greek side, Greek fellows. However, they are not enjoying normal human rights that they deserve. Therefore, from the Turkish Cypriot point of view, the current situation is not sustainable. That one has to agree, and therefore, as I say, as His Excellency has also mentioned that, the Greek side has no complaints and they are already enjoying all the autonomy and full rights.
Yeah.
And therefore they have no need or necessity for a solution in the island. So they are already happy with the current
Status quo.
Yeah. So that's why I think the role that the International Committee bears, the responsibility right now the International Committee has, that this issue needs to be addressed, and as we have a saying in Turkish, I also used it in the last week in the Conservative Party conference. You don't try what's been tried, right, multiple times, and it's already, as you said, 15 times. 15 times they sat on the negotiating table, and 15 times the Greek side has refused for a solution.
What do you think?
A settlement.
Yeah, but do you think the Greek Cypriot side is just waiting for Turkish Cypriots to submit to virtually everything?
Exactly.
And just be a privileged partner at best, or a privileged minority?
The food dragging from the Greek side is actually to compel the Turkish Cypriots to accept what they're offering, right? And they already know that every passing year the Turkish Cypriots are suffering from the situation, and they say we have nothing to lose, so they need to come to the negotiating room and agree with us. So that's why I'm saying that the current situation is not sustainable.
Well, the elephant in the room is always Turkey. I mean, I've been to many multi-communal events with Greek Cypriots in our audience as well, and they're always saying, well, Turkey this, Turkey that, it's always blaming Turks. And when it comes to a Turkish Cypriot, and I'm a Turkish Cypriot, we're brothers, we're the same. But how can we be the same? We can't fly direct, we can't trade direct, we can't play sport. The President Tatar's suggestion about clearing mines in the buffer zone, even that's rejected. I mean, that's something hugely humanitarian. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. There's a lot of smuggling that goes on, in between the buffer zone. And why can't we work together on that? Because if there's even an inch of elevation of the North's status, the Greek Cypriots will not allow this to happen. So I think the Greek Cypriot negative attitude and intransigence has only pushed the indigenous Turkish Cypriots further and further away. Okay, so generations, as you say, of Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, they just won't understand what connection they have. And it's only, the generations before that know the full history and the full extent. And another example, we touched on the EU. I think the EU has overcomplicated the matter as well. I mean, we're technically meant to be in the EU, the northern part of Cyprus. But they won't even accept Turkish as an official language of the EU. I mean, what is that saying to us?
If I may add something on this point, in terms of this targeting Turkey as as the main culprit, the fact is that TRNC is a separate entity and state from Turkey.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't govern TRNC. We don't elect its president. We don't elect its parliamentarians. Even anyone who knows the island well, getting Turkish Cypriot citizenship is a really difficult thing for any Turkish national. It's not that you go to this country and get the citizenship. So all institutions are independent, and anyone who follows Turkish Cypriot politics and media will easily know that how vibrant this country is. Everything is discussed and everything is, criticized harshly by certain groups. The judiciary is independent, and even the system is different. The judicial system, because it's inherited from the British system, as you might know.
Yeah.
We have our strong troop presence there since '74, and it's the guarantor of peace there. But they are in their, as I say, barracks.
Yeah.
We don't have a police force on the streets, so it's effectively a separate state governing itself and its own affairs.
Yeah. It is, yeah. I mean, David, maybe you can give a bit more of an impartial view, but some of our audience might not agree. But, I mean, you've been there a couple of times. I mean, do you see, army on the streets, tanks on the roads? What kind of a picture can you draw in terms of, the living standards and the quality of life in Northern Cyprus?
So one thing that surprised me actually was, given the embargoes, was actually how high the living standard. It's like really just being in a normal European state, and actually, frankly, that tells me the embargoes aren't working. A, but B, it means that there's clearly, we've already heard that there's a lack of incentive on the Greek Cypriot side, probably. There's certainly a lack of incentive on the Turkish Cypriot side. People kind of there's this kind of folk memory of '74 of the Turkish occupation being an occupation, or intervention, being an occupation. Yeah. And it's very, very clear to me, amongst Turkish Cypriots, they see the Turkish presence there as a protection. It's a protection force for them. And the problem is, even though it's almost 50 years ago, the kind of the memories and the images of what happened are still very much alive, and there's a deep lack of trust with their neighbours about what would happen if those Turkish troops withdrew, and frankly I can understand that. I think I can understand that, having seen what I saw. So, but I mean, there's some. So you don't see troops on the streets. I've seen barracks, no-go areas with barracks. You do see things like Barosha, which the empty, astonishingly, the empty town, seaside resort, which I think is in itself. When I was there with a Guardian journalist first time round, and I think he put it very well. He just said this is a monument to diplomatic failure. Is these empty buildings actually standing up better than some of our schools, I should say. But it's but these empty buildings, some damage, military damage from 50 years ago, but there.
But on that issue of Marash, I mean, there is no local remedy for any of the owners of properties, and
only recently.
But the ECHR recognises the Immovable Property Commission, IPC, for example. Any ownership of Greek Cypriot property that's where you can prove you've got title to it, you can claim your compensation or restitution, and that includes Marash as well.
Yeah.
And Marash has only recently been opened. 3% is open to the public you can go and have a look, and I believe there is a master plan
in the public areas.
In the public areas, but and I believe the Lordos family, they would be more than happy to go back and open their hotels even if it was administered by Turkish Cypriots. But anyway, I don't think we're going to go into that territory now. We're discussing about what's the best way forward in the panel's opinion. But I think we've come to the stage now. Sorry, NSB, would you?
10 minutes.
Yeah. We'll come to the stage now where we'd like to ask yourselves if you can give us a question as opposed to a statement. That would be really appreciated. If you want to direct it at anyone in particular, we can take some questions from our audience. Yes, sir.
My name is Jason Mackenzie. A question, I think, for the Turkish gentleman, the Turkish Cypriot gentleman, rather than Mr. Maddox.
Yeah.
Would you be happy if the island of Cyprus ended up a bit like the island of Ireland, with Northern Ireland at the top and the Republic of Ireland in the south, both recognised as sovereign entities, both recognised by the world, both trading with the world? And could I ask His Excellency first, please?
Not going into the details of the analogy, this is basically what we expect from the international community, meaning that two separate sovereign states and identities live side by side in peace, which is actually the conversion of the current reality. Actually, the current reality is exactly the same. The only difference is the sovereign equality of one side, which is an inherent right, is not yet recognized.
Yeah, I think the only, again, we've oversimplified here. The Northern Ireland has, two religions there as well, and fundamentally we'd go back to having a religious argument because you've got Catholics and Protestants. But having spoken to a number of Northern Irish Catholics, they would still prefer to keep their Northern Irish identity. And I think we know there are other practicing religions. There are Maronites, for example, in the north, and they want to stay in the north. So I could see that as a good model. And I know that there are a number of Northern Irish parliamentarians that also understand the Cyprus problem, and they see two states as the only viable, sustainable solution. Thank you, Jason Mackenzie. The gentleman wearing a red shirt.
A lot of your discussion is focused on the relative status and power of the Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots. I'm wondering if, people in Greek Cypriots and Greeks in general look at this situation more in terms of the wider geopolitical context, where there's actually Turkey is a lot more powerful, is kind of growing in power, so there's maybe a feeling of vulnerability as we're coming from that.
Vulnerability in terms of the Greek Cypriots.
Yeah, and maybe even Greece in general, feeling kind of threatened by Turkey's geopolitical importance.
Is that your question then? Do Greek Cypriots feel threatened by Turkey?
Yeah.
If you ask me as a Turkish Cypriot, I feel threatened by the Greek Cypriots' rule and governance. Without Turkey, I just wouldn't even consider a solution, even a two-state solution. In my mind, this is down to the politicians and the power be, would have to have some sort of guaranteed status for Turkish Cypriot existence. We're a smaller population there. I understand how Greek Cypriots are threatened by that, but don't forget Turkey and Greece are NATO powers. They're regional allies. Turkey, just by way of having a huge population and more military force, I understand that, but Turkey and Greece, have never been at odds apart from the occasional issues in the Aegean. I'm not the diplomat here. I've got a very experienced one. How would you answer that one, Your Excellency?
No, the thing is, Turkish-Greek relationship has not been an easy one. For centuries actually. The two nations lived together under the Ottoman Empire. Then in the 19th century, early 19th century, Greeks were the first who were actually left the empire. And Greek nationalism is actually based on anti-Turkish fears and identity as well. And unfortunately, successive developments have fed these sentiments and population exchanges. There have been dramatic episodes in the history as well. Hundreds of thousands of Greeks migrated to Greece, modern Greece today. Hundreds of thousands of Turks similarly migrated to mainland Anatolia, and they still, keep some of their cultural background. So, as time passes, there is a kind of balance between the two countries. As you see, sometimes the tension arises based on the Aegean problems or Mediterranean issues or minority problems, but sometimes tensions swell down and then it becomes normalized relationship. And just recently, after the earthquakes and elections in both countries, we are having a more normal type of relationship. So, as diplomats and as governments of both countries, everybody should manage this sensitive relationship, because we are sitting in a very critical part of the world, of Europe as well, and a kind of agreement or an arrangement in Cyprus will certainly add to an overall peace in the larger region, and also bilateral Turkish-Greek relationship.
But I mean, this is how the 1960 constitution was formed. It's unique.
Exactly.
And you had
it's based on all these
absolutely.
balances,
because you had the history of Cyprus, obviously the way it's evolved over hundreds of years, Ottoman rule as well, and yet we had a British, Greek, Turkish guarantors for peace and security on the island. Just to go back to your question, and I'm afraid the Greek. The Greek governors at the time, the Greek junta, decided to invade Cyprus as opposed to protect it. And the UK government, again the other guarantor power, decided to watch. And there was a lot of shuttle diplomacy before Turkey's intervention on the 20th of July, and yet no one chose to act apart from Turkey. And as I said, the elephant in the room is always Turkey. But I think even at Crans-Montana it was discussed that the guarantor relationship between Cyprus and its motherlands for Greek and for Turks, that was going to be removed. So I think we can only start rebuilding relationships and safeguarding insecurities. In my mind, anyway, for a two-state solution, so we can learn to trust each other once more. Can I take any more questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, hello. My name's Hanad.
Hanad, yeah.
And I was really wondering, with putting those terms, many of sort of geopolitical issues or conflicts around the world, Britain itself had a stake or has a stake, and I know it's the same with the Cyprus issue. So, but in terms of finding solutions, what is the level of engagement like now with British parliamentarians? What is their understanding of the issue, and are they willing to engage in a more constructive or a different manner to sort of the talks and what you were discussing earlier on?
Anyone wants to take that? Dennis, me?
The issue better than I.
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer as well, but after you.
The current British government continues to repeat the old narrative. So they say it should be a solution on federative model within the UN parameters and etc. Basically, this is hiding, or putting your head to the ground, because this is not reflecting the current reality. So, in all our discussions with our British colleagues, we encourage them as a guarantor power, as an important player on the island, to recognize the new realities on the politics of the island, and also to be more forthcoming, at least on certain issues like direct flights, for example. I mean, direct flights, we had direct flights for decades after 74.
Yeah.
We had it. and it literally has no reason not to have direct flights, for instance. So on all these issues, we continue to encourage our British colleagues to have a more sympathetic look to the Turkish views on the island. Otherwise, times are passing, and geostrategy is changing. The war is there. Russia is back again, and we are seeing, probably a warmer Middle East. Just as I say, putting your head to the ground will not resolve anything, and geopolitical shifts could bring some tectonic changes on the island, which will probably affect the British policies as well.
Yeah. I'd like to respond as well, but David, after you.
Yeah, I was going to. I think the ambassador's been very polite. I think political engagement in Westminster in this is actually very disappointing. It doesn't matter which party you're talking about. I mean, Jack Straw, who I still think is one of our better foreign secretaries, has been very good, but subsequent to being foreign secretary, unfortunately, and it often seems to be the way. Once people are out of office, they understand the mistakes they made. And I'm afraid, as much as I like him personally, and I think he's a very good foreign secretary in lots of ways, I think James Cleverly has been very disappointing on this issue. But overall in Parliament, there is an enormous amount of ignorance about Cyprus and its history and about what happened. And really, a lack of willing to care or understand. And yet, I only compare it, and I will of course mention Israel-Palestine, which of course is an enormous issue, but if you compare the amount of attention that gets compared to the amount of attention, it's minuscule, the amount of attention, and most people will just say, the Turks are occupying, it's wrong, blah, without actually looking at the issue. The fact is, and why I think it's very disappointing, apart from the fact that it's tragic what's happened in Cyprus, is that Cyprus is extremely important. We have 2 military bases there. There's a reason why for centuries it has been a strategic location, whether it's for the Ottomans, for the Crusaders, for the British, and now actually for the Americans as well. It is close to the Middle East. It is absolutely pivotal in its position, and we've allowed this situation to malinger on and do very little about it, and make very little intervention, take very little interest in it. And I'm afraid, from my observations, the negatives, very much on the negative side, we are opening the door to hostile powers like Russia, like Iran. They're spending their money there, they're investing there. We are actually endangering ourselves by not sorting out this issue.
So, and just on that point, David, and I'll respond as well. So, there's a vacuum effectively that's been created.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of French activity as well, because they're looking at the UK as weak. Obviously, French as EU members with Cyprus. And this vacuum is being filled in the north, unfortunately, by Russian and Ukrainian migration in small numbers, but it's happening.
And Iranian investment.
And Iranian investment. And again, given the economic status of Northern Cyprus, if it wasn't for Turkey's annual subsidies, there wouldn't be an economy, because we're starved of income. If it's not coming from real estate purchases like what's happening currently, then effectively, we're also going to be, I'm afraid, impoverished and like a third world country. But going back to, it's all about engagement with the UK parliamentarians, because I personally spend a lot of time talking to both Labour and Conservative MPs and Lib Dems, and it's explaining, and it's shocking how 1974, 20th of July, Turkish invasion, that's a key note in their minds. A lot of them are completely oblivious to all of the reasons why and what's happened beforehand, etc., because that narrative has been used by the Greek Cypriot propaganda machine since 1964. Okay, so even trying to engage with UK parliamentarians is difficult at times because people won't talk to you because you're Turkish Cypriot and you come from an occupied state. And I know we've arranged many delegations for parliamentarians here, successful ones, but a number of those particular prospective MPs, somehow it's been found out that delegations being organised for them, they're threatened not to go. There's even the Foreign Office over here, the advisory is don't go to the north. They're telling UK parliamentarians, they're giving them that advice. Well, what on earth are they doing that for? It's not. There's not civil war there, and it's not danger to your life. They have a civilised society. They have all the trappings of a modern state. So it's a hard sell, is in short. But we have to engage with UK parliamentarians, and Turkish Cypriots in this audience. We're always explaining to them and our local communities that you just talk to your local MP and ask them difficult questions and make them respond to you, and they could even ask a question in Parliament. They may get a cut and paste response ordinarily from the Foreign Office, but we have to be persistent, and then with that persistence, there's going to be a little bit more. That misinformation is going to slowly wane. That's my objective anyway with this particular project, and we're going to get better at it. So until we get that equity in or out of the United Nations negotiation rooms, then we're going to keep persisting for a two-state solution. Can I take any more questions? We're coming to a close, I believe, but happy to take one more question from anyone. Yes, sir.
Very quick question. So
Yeah.
my name is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Are there any countries that you can see starting bilateral ties or even recognising the TRNC in the next 5 years?
Yeah,
Your Excellency?
if I may on this.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Already the TRNC, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, became an observer member to Turkic Organization of Turkic States. It is a fledgling organization which is increasingly getting the attention of the international community, and it offers a lot of opportunities for the future, given the huge potential of Central and Turkic world, Central Asia and Turkic world. Similar developments are happening with some other countries. Currently, TRNC has embassies and representatives in many countries, from Pakistan to Qatar. They are having different kinds of offices. Even in London, they have a representative office. So, as long as this intransigent attitude continues on the part of the Greek Cypriots, there are increasing number of countries showing interest in engaging with the Turkish Cypriots, which will end up eventually in a formal recognition.
Yeah, I mean, again, in terms of not happy to talk about it, but the amount of Russians that are flocking into the north, and incidentally, a lot of them are moving from south to north because of the property prices, and the differential between euro and Turkish lira makes it more attractive to buy properties in the north. Well, what's that created? It's created problems for their own community in the sense that they need consular service. So there has been discussions about opening a consular office for Russians I believe that will be going ahead. But the Russians themselves have been talking about, at foreign minister level, having direct flights to Northern Cyprus. But I think a closer alliance with Turkic states, such as Azerbaijan, for example, is most likely, and it's encouraging for us as Turkish Cypriots. Well, I want to draw this to a close now. Thank you to our panellists, Your Excellency, David and SB, and thank you to all of you for attending and being patient and listening. Thank you very much. Thank you.